Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome tonight's MC from ESPN, Ryan McGee.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the 59th Annual NSMA Awards Banquet. It's hard to believe it's been almost 60 years that we've had this banquet, but it's only the second year we've been here in Winston-Salem. We're going to talk about that a lot tonight. But the first thing I'm supposed to do is to tell everybody to sit down and eat, because the quicker we eat, the quicker we can get to handing out the hardware, which is why we're here tonight, and to pay tribute to our Hall of Famers and some of the greatest in the history of the business and some of the greatest in the business today. Before we do that, it is my honor to introduce a man that, if you've been to some Wake Forest games, you'll recognize the voice. And I just learned this about Frank Thomas, who's coming up now. If you attended Wake Forest games back in the Chris Paul era, the demon deacon that descended down from the rafters, like that was this guy. You just didn't know it because he was inside of the mascot head. But for our national anthem tonight, before we start eating, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Frank Thomas from right here in Winston-Salem.
If you wouldn't mind rising. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
All right, enjoy your dinner, and I'll be back up here in a little bit, and we will get the festivities started.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back your MC tonight, Ryan McGee.
Hey, everybody. I hope dinner was great. I was told, I was given one assignment in the pre-dinner chat other than just introduce the national anthem, and I failed on that. I was supposed to let y'all know the bathrooms were through that door right there. And that was the only thing I had on my list to do, and I failed to do that. But welcome again to the 59th Annual NSMA Awards Banquet. I mentioned earlier, we're coming up on 6 decades of this incredible organization. I hope you had a chance as you walked in through the lobby of this great Coliseum to see the busts of the names of the people who are honored in our Hall of Fame. Grantland Rice, Jim McKay, Chris Schenkel. I mean, these are the titans of our industry that none of us would be here today if it wasn't for them. And tonight we induct 4 new members into that Hall of Fame, of which those bronze busts, those gentlemen are already members of that. And this is always one of my favorite nights of the year. It's great to be in Winston-Salem for this. This is just our 2nd year here in Winston-Salem, and the city has been unbelievable. I say this all the time, that it's not a town, it's a city. It's so good they had to have 2 names, though I have to point out, according to the Associated Press style book, that is not a dash, that is a hyphen, even though the baseball team here is the Winston-Salem Dash. My high school English teacher reminded me of that when I was on my way over here tonight. But as a North Carolinian, this has always been such a fantastic sports town. Full disclosure, my brother is a Demon Deacon. He was a student here a few years ago. As part of that process, you have a sports quiz as your interview. That's your job interview. And I sat with a lot of you, remember the name Al Jaffe. And Al, his job was to make you as uncomfortable as possible as a 22-year-old right out of college. And he sat across the thing, and he just gives you this deal here and just asks you questions that he figures me as a Southerner would not be able to answer. Like, let's talk a little bit about the teams of the AFC West. You're from North Carolina. I'm like, yes, sir. Well, let's talk about who you think is going to win the Vesna Trophy. I had no idea even what that was, and there's no Google at that point, young people, so I never had a chance. But I've always hung my hat on the fact that he did ask me. He said, who do you believe will be the freshman that has the greatest impact on college basketball this year? And I said, literally said to Al Jaffe, my brother will not shut up about this swimmer from the Virgin Islands who has just started his freshman year at Wake Forest. I think his name is Duncan. And Al Jaffe looked at me like, you idiot, did you really just come in here and try to sell me on someone I've never heard of, who's from the Virgin Islands and is a swimmer? Well, Al Jaffe retired about 2 years ago, and right before his last day in his office, I called him on the telephone and I said, do you still have your notes from our interview? And he said, yes, I know that Tim Duncan turned out very nice. I have things to do. So I've always thanked my brother for that, and it was because I sat in the student section right there with him and watched those folks. So it's great to be in Winston-Salem. It's a great sports town, and great to see my friends from Salisbury who hosted this event so tremendously for so long that are here tonight. Speaking of Winston-Salem, the first person that I'm honored to bring up onto the stage tonight, and hopefully we just had dinner together. Hopefully he's not mad that I pointed out this hyphen dash scenario. That would be the mayor of this great town, Mr. Alan Joines.
Thank you, Ryan. Good evening, everyone. Hope Winston-Salem is treating you pretty nicely so far. If you have any problems, parking tickets or things of that nature, Dave Gordon will be glad to take care of those for you. Seriously, we're just delighted to be hosting this event for the 2nd year and hopefully for many, many more years to come. We are delighted to have this prestigious event here in Winston-Salem with the hyphen in the middle of our names there. I want to offer my sincere congratulations to the inductees that will be honored tonight, obviously, with maybe a little special prestige, I guess, for Woody Durham and our local guy here, as well as all the award winners that will be recognized as well. I have to call out my good friend Stan Cotton, the voice of the Deacons, who here is going to be recognized for that. you know, all of these individuals made huge contributions to not only to the field of sports, but also just to the quality of all of our lives as we enjoyed hearing them or reading their stories about sports and made our lives even better. You know, Winston-Salem is a city of about 245,000 in a metro area of 1.6 million. Our brand, if you will, is the city of the arts and innovation. We don't take that lightly. The arts, we had the first arts council in the country in 1949, and just a few, maybe a mile from here, some of the most cutting-edge research in the country is going on in the area of regenerative medicine and information technologies and things of that nature. So we're proud of our city, but we're even more proud to have this event in Winston-Salem tonight and many more years to come, hopefully. Hope you have a great stay in Winston-Salem and a great visit. Thank you.
Now, Alan is the mayor of Winston-Salem. He grew up just up the hill, as we say, in Wilkes County, North Carolina. And for those of you who don't know your NASCAR history, that's where NASCAR really started, because that's where they used to run the moonshine through the hills. That's where Junior Johnson is from. And so if you want to attend the real after party, he might know some people that can hook you up with the real stuff. I learned years ago from Junior Johnson, he said, you can buy the stuff at the store or you can get the real stuff from me, because I'm from Wilkes County. But thank you so much for that, Mr. Mayor. We all have our digital friendships, right? There are a lot of people in this room tonight that I've chatted with that I know you through Twitter, I know you through Instagram, but we had never actually physically met, but I considered you a friend because we've known each other for years. One of those people is the next person to step up here tonight. This is from the Winston-Salem Chamber of Commerce, the president of the Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Mark Owens.
Thank you and good evening. Again, welcome to Winston-Salem. I wake up every Saturday morning to Ryan and Marty's podcast since I now have a 10-month-old and I'm up at 6 in the morning. Middle on putting this on. Hopefully in your short time here, you'll realize that the hyphen brings our community together, and that's what we're going to continue to do as a rich history. Just moving here a few months ago, been welcomed into this community with open arms, and we welcome you tonight. And we welcome you back each and every time. To our friends from Salisbury, it's a great thing to do this together, and we appreciate that. I'm also a new board member of this great organization and look forward to being a part of that from years to come. But most importantly tonight, I'm a fan. I'm the person on the other end of the broadcast, or the one reading the newspaper, that connects me back to the stories of my grandfather and my dad and those experiences that will last a lifetime. I was honored to watch a baseball game with Bob Ryan, who I've read about, and got to just be a Red Sox fan, and to hear stories are just absolutely incredible. So I'd like to just continue to challenge you to write those stories. My table mates were talking about it being early in the morning, but all these folks are connecting to you. And as a fan, we appreciate it. And it means a lot to us to hear your voices, to read your stories, to watch you coach. And I'd also like to give you a congratulations to your family members and your spouses that sacrifice lots of hours. So on behalf of our business community, thank you for staying here. We welcome you back anytime. Congratulations, awards winners. You deserve it. You tell the story. Thank you.
I appreciate Mark lying and saying he listens to Marty McGee on ESPN Radio. I tell everybody, please listen, because we might not be on much longer. It's the dumbest show on radio, and we're kind of proud of that. Marty texted me and told me to tell you guys that. Our next guest up here on the stage tonight is a name that I've known for a long time through my ties through NASCAR. The first half of my career primarily was covering motorsports. That's why I spent a lot of time in Winston-Salem. That's why I spent a lot of time in this building where we used to host the old Winston Cup preview, where all the drivers would come in and they'd sign autographs and 25,000 people would show up, a lot more than show up to a lot of races now. But it was a great time to be a part of that sport, and a name that was tied to that I knew through Lowe's Home Improvement is going to join us now, and that's Bob Gefeller. And for those who don't know, Bob he does so much incredible work as a vice president and chief marketing officer at Wake Forest Baptist Health. I know him through the Childress Pediatric Trauma Institute. Richard Childress, the NASCAR Hall of Fame team owner, who grew up in Winston-Salem on the wrong side of the tracks just a few miles from here. That's his name that's on the building. And I don't know Bob, but I know what Richard Childress tells me about Bob, and I think we should all look forward to hearing what he has to say right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Geffeldt.
Well, thank you very much for an opportunity just to talk to you for a couple of minutes. Dave Gorn asked me if I'd like a little time at the mic, and I said I would, and this is why, and maybe I can tie some threads from Mayor Joines together. I'm standing here really representing Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center. I do have a long history in sports marketing from Lowe's Home Improvement and the 31 car with Mike Skinner and the 48 car with Jimmy. But I come here today as one of the sponsors here reaching out to you to tell you how proud we are to work with you and that you're all here in Winston-Salem, not only tonight and last year, but for the future. So one of the challenges that Dave gave us when he came to Wake Forest Baptist and said, can you help us on this? He said, can you help us do something different and special for our honorees who are here to receive these wonderful awards, lifetime achievement. Again, your families are here. It's a great weekend. And in the spirit of being the city of arts and innovation, we put our heads together and we decided that we wanted to help you be even better at your profession. So yesterday morning, for those of you who came, I'm very grateful. It was great to have you with us. We put on a sports medicine workshop for a couple of hours down at the Innovation Quarter, where we have our School of Medicine. Wake Forest University has their School of Engineering. And we tried to bring forward to you all some of our pros, some of our biomedical engineers, our orthopedic surgeons, our concussion experts who deal in that field. And I hope what we did is kind of set the table for those of you who could come to show you what we want to do for you in the years to come. We want to teach you new things. We want you to have new angles. We want you to be the most knowledgeable wherever you are doing your sportscasting. I don't care if it's high school or if it's college or if the pros. So for those of you who came, our whole staff who pulled that off is extremely grateful. We're going to send out and hopefully get some feedback so that we can make your visit and your learning opportunity even better next year. So thank you again. Congratulations to all the honorees. I'll tell you one quick story. When I was growing up in Mount Vernon, New York, my little Italian grandfather, Florindo Vitucci, was a boxer. And he was a little guy, and he used to box at the local boys and girls clubs, and he introduced me to none other than Howard Cosell. And I remember growing up with my dad, you know, we didn't have all this direct TV and all this great stuff, but we were able to go down to the Coliseum and watch the Thrilla in Manila. And I remember that, and I remember Howard Cosell, and I think you guys are all wonderful in teaching all of our children, our families, to be outstanding sports fans. So thank you. Have a great evening.
Over the last several months, I've had the opportunity to work with Dale Earnhardt Jr. on a book that will be out this fall. He was forced into retirement because of repeated concussions and head trauma. And so I've become very familiar with the work that Bob and his group are doing. And of course, concussions and head injuries in particular affect everything that we do in this room, how we cover the sport and how the sports that we cover are going to move into the future. So thank you for that, Bob, and thank you for the education. It is time now for the first inductee into the NSMA Hall of Fame, and that's Bryant Gumbel. Bryant Gumbel, I don't know that I need to go into many details about what Bryant has done, but he has been a groundbreaker and a barrier breaker his entire career, going back to when he first started covering the National Football League for NBC in 1975. And of course, we remember him as the host of the Today Show, and it's hard to believe, but Real Sports on HBO has been on the air since 1995. And as someone who works routinely on E60, I can tell you firsthand that you sit and watch that show, Real Sports, and what they continue to do in and out of every quarter over the course of the last 2.5 decades, it's absolutely tremendous. He could not be with us here tonight, but we still want to make sure that we take the time to honor our first Hall of Fame inductee of the evening, and that's Bryant Gumbel. I do not know Bryant. I know his brother Greg, and I asked Greg if he wanted me to etch anything like embarrassing on that plaque, and he said that he would take care of that later. At this time, I'd like to introduce a man who is taking care of all of you, whether you know it or not. It is no secret to a lot of us in this room. It has been a bit of a transitional time for this organization, for the NSMA. The name has been changed, the location of this banquet has been changed, but there also have been a lot of difficult decisions and a lot of decisions that have had to be made by the man who will walk up here right now. Ladies and gentlemen, someone that we should all thank for what is always one of the best weekends of the year. That is Dave Gorn, Executive Director of the NSMA.
Thank you all very much. It is so nice to see so many friendly faces in this audience. I feel like I know everyone even if I don't. So welcome to Winston-Salem. To all of our guests, congratulations to all of our award winners and honorees. And what a wild and fun week this has been. Not sure what day it is, but that's okay. The thank yous to the people of Winston-Salem who have supported us since we moved here, the awards weekend last June, and then our offices to Flywheel co-working space at the Center for Design Innovation. Thank you. To all of our donors and sponsors, thank you. From Gary and Jackie Bechtel to Don and Robin Flo to Ben Sutton, thank you very much. A special thank you to Bob Gefeller and the folks at Wake Forest Baptist Health Sports Medicine. Thank you for a wonderful Sports Medicine Summit yesterday. Our winners who are there have already been raving about it, want to do it again. In fact, somebody stopped me tonight so abruptly they almost pulled my arm off, so I might need some regenerative medicine help. To our table sponsors, Fox Sports and Fox Sports University, thank you. Thank you to the Wyndham Championship, the sponsor of our new Best Golf Story Award. IMG College, David Shannon and his gang, our JDL Fast Track Saturday Barbecue hosts, thank you. A special thank you to Ricky Shore and Aladdin Travel. Ricky served as the chair for our local community engagement event that we held last Thursday night, the Ann Spencer Sports Connector Award dinner. The Annie, it was a great success. Thank you, Ricky, and thank you, Bob Ryan, the national chair of our board, who flew in a couple days early to deliver an inspiring keynote address. Thank you, Bob. To the ACC, Learfield Sports Athletics, thank you as well. Rich Geiger and the folks at Visit Winston-Salem, our consultants at Stepstone Strategic, J.D. Wilson, Sandra, and Bill, who are under-recognized by most. In fact, a few of Big House Gaines' 828 wins came right here on the floor on which we are all sitting. Our Division II winner of the Gaines Award is a gentleman whose Claflin University Panthers have shown steady improvement over his 5 seasons there. This past season, 26 wins and a berth in the NCAA Division II South Regional Semifinals. Ladies and gentlemen, our Big House Gaines Award winner for Division II is Ricky Jackson. Ricky.
Good evening, everybody. First, I'd like to thank the National Sports Media Association for this honor, and I especially like to thank my family, my siblings who've been very supportive, my children who are absent, they've been very supportive, and most of all, the Claflin family. My colleagues are in San Antonio at the Rules Seminar learning, so we don't commit any violations. But my hat's off to them because they've been very supportive over the 5 years, and my assistant, Terrence Jenkins, has been a big part of us getting it done at Claflin, and of course the student athletes and the student body. And again, I thank you, and thank you.
Congratulations again, Ricky. Our Division I winner has been around the block once or twice. He's a North Carolina native and veteran of both college basketball and the NBA. What I love watching about his teams is how hard they play, especially on defense. And this past season, he even got a little offense toward the end of the season. As a result, Florida State won 3 games in the NCAA tournament. They beat Missouri, Xavier, and Gonzaga before losing to eventual national runner-up Michigan in the Elite Eight. Your Division I winner of the Big House Gaines Award, who flew in from Memphis just to be here with us tonight, Leonard Hamilton.
You don't know how good it feels to come into Winston-Salem and be among so many ACC fans and not feel like they're going to throw a knife in your back as you walk past them. It's very interesting when you come into ACC country to play a game, and a lot of people say, you know, you're a North Carolina guy and we're glad to see you. And if you look back as you walk by them, they'll be saying, yeah, we're going to kick you, you know. And I get those stares. And I come into Wake Forest, and I'm trying to get my bearings right as to, you know, how the court runs. And, you know, I see a couple of white hair, elderly ladies that come in, and they're barely moving. And soon as Wake Forest go up, they are screaming and hollering, and they're shaking all over the place. And it's very interesting how this whole area are out for, they're such sports-minded people. And first thing I want to say is, would y'all please tell people that you meet that I do have a little personality? Everybody talks about my stare and how mean and ornery I look. I go through the airport and people will say, will you please smile? But you don't know what it's like with 17, 18-year-old kids run up down the court with your paycheck in their pocket. It's not, you know, so it's not easy to sit there and say, please and thank you. So when you tell people that I'm not mean, I'm not ornery, I do have a little personality, okay? Now, I want to recognize the media organization here because this is the 59th award banquet. And you have to realize how important you guys are to our sports industry, the responsibility you have of reporting the sports. A lot of times as I travel, I go into the Delta Club, and people will pick up a newspaper, and you could have wars going on over here and tax things going over here, but the guys, the first thing they do is go straight to the sports page. And you get up in the morning, and nobody's reading about this and about that. They all are going to the sports page to see what's going on. And you guys have such a responsibility and you shape so many of the thoughts and the ideas that are going on in sports, and you do such a great job. Some of my best enemies are sports writers. I mean, I'm sorry, I mean to say that. Some of my best friends have been guys who report in the media, but you guys do such a great job, and you ought to be congratulated for that. And quickly, it's not good to give a guy who feels so blessed to have been in the profession as long as I have, to have a chance to experience so many great things in sports, a microphone when you got a long banquet. But I'll share this with you. I was with my mother-in-law this past weekend. She had is celebrating her 88th birthday. And I have a niece from Chicago, and she said to me when she found out that I was coming here and getting recognized, she said, don't you feel honored? And I had a problem with the word honored, because most coaches, we don't do this because we want to get recognition, that we want to get honored. And I couldn't find a word to give her an answer. And after about a day and a half, you know, I told her, I say, the word that I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I've been given the responsibility, that I believe all my steps have been ordered. But I believe to have the opportunity to work with young people and get them when they're 17, 18-year-old teenagers, and you work with them to they're young adults, that you see them move on in life. And I realized that all what I have and all that I have become is as a result of having a chance to earn a scholarship, to get my education. And then I adopted my brother Willie, and he gets his education, and his two sons go to college, and they get their education. I adopted my sister Pamela, and her son goes to school. My brother John was influenced by me, and his son goes to school and gets their education. So having an opportunity to participate in sports and get my education, I'm a long ways from 4 boys in 1 bedroom with 2 bunk beds and a bathroom on the back porch and no hot and cold running water and taking a bath in a tin tub over in the corner. Sports has meant that much to me. And I'm so grateful that I've had an opportunity to participate in this sport. And I'm honored to be here. I'm grateful to be here. And more than anything else, I feel so blessed to have an opportunity to be in this sports and for you guys to recognize me. Many times you see young people on the floor and they'll hit a free throw and they'll point up to the sky like they're giving honor to that person up, the big guy in the sky, and saying thank you. Well, I feel like I need to have a pulpit Bible under one arm, a big cross around my neck, and me walking around all day long pointing to the sky for all the wonderful blessings and the opportunity that I've had to participate in the sport. And for you guys to recognize me as a guy who's doing a decent job, to me, means an awful lot to me. Thank you very much.
Congratulations again, Leonard, and once again, congratulations to all of our winners. A sincere thank you to everybody for being here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. My Big House Gaines was such an institution in the game of college basketball, but also in this city. And there's a place just up the road from here called Mountain Fried. And it's a fried chicken joint, and the slogan is, "It's not greasy," which is a total lie, by the way. But it's the best fried chicken you'll ever have. And I was in town to see my brother when he was at Wake Forest, and we'd been to a basketball game, and we were thinking about what we're going to do tonight, maybe go to Bowman Gray Stadium, which might be America's greatest short track. And we're eating fried chicken over at Mountain Fried, and this guy comes in with an entourage, and we realize it's Big House Gaines. And we both got all our Demon Deacon stuff. And I walked over, I said, "Are you Coach Gaines?" And he goes, "Yes, I am." And he goes, "And just so you know, you just had the greatest moment in the history of Winston-Salem sports." Because between Big House Gaines and the institution we were eating in and having watched Wake Forest play basketball, that was a good night. My favorite part of this weekend is the part that many of you already experienced, and that's the education part. That's the connections part. That's the networking part, especially the young people who are just now getting into the business, which people will tell you is tough, and they're right, but it's totally worth it to put in the time. The man who's going to join us now is a man who can help you with that. And is a man that I've gotten to know on the board here with the NSMA, with the Sportscasters Talent Agency of America. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my friend who I only see once a year, and that's John Chalesnik.
Thank you, Ryan. Good evening, everybody. This is the 10th year that we've presented the Jim Nantz Award to the nation's most outstanding collegiate sports broadcaster. The first 3 years, I mailed it to the winner in a priority mailbox. Then NSMA and Dave Gorn invited me to present it here. And the first year that we did went off flawlessly. But then on the bus ride home, I sat next to that night's winner. And it was at the end of a long night, and everybody was quiet. The bus was dark and silent. And when he told me that he was going to go into business instead of sportscasting, maybe pursue play-by-play part-time, I was crushed because I thought, wow, here we are, the first year presenting the award at NSMA, and the winner's not even going to work in the industry. Well, this year, Alex Faust finished his first season as the television voice of the Los Angeles Kings. It was pretty cool. Thank you. Also, 2 other quick examples of some of the past winners that both occurred within a short span of each other recently. It was during football season. I got up on a Saturday morning to watch my Kansas State Wildcats win at Texas Tech, and I turned on the television, and there's one of our Nantz winners, Kevin Fitzgerald, doing the game for Fox. And maybe a week later, I was listening to a national radio broadcast, national, Chargers-Jaguars. Josh Appel, who won the award just 2 years ago, was doing that game. So it's really neat to see all of our Nance winners, and all but one is working and excelling in the industry, and it's very gratifying to see what they're accomplishing. I want to acknowledge our judges from this year. I won't name them all, just in the name of brevity, but I have publicly thanked them and appreciate them so tremendously because it is a time commitment, and we're grateful for their help. Our All-Americans this year, they are among the group of 6, counting the Nance winner, that are the most outstanding collegiate sportscasters, as we chose them. It's very arbitrary, or what's subjective, not arbitrary, but subjective. But Blaine McCormick from Arizona State, Matt Jarecki from Northern Arizona University, Mick Tidrow from Ball State, Jack Benjamin, who is here tonight, from Santa Clara University, and Evan Stockton from Syracuse. So congratulations to each of them as well. Thank you. So the first day that applications opened for this year's Nance Award, the second one came in. And I thought, well, let me finish the day. It was a Friday with an empty email inbox. And so I listened to the first couple. And after I listened to the second one, I told my wife, I think I just found somebody that might be the Nance Award winner. And sure enough, the judges agreed with me. So please welcome the first female in the 10-year history of the award to win the Jim Nance Award, Katie Emmer, a senior from St. Cloud State University.
Hi, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to thank the National Sports Media Association for hosting such an incredible event here in Winston-Salem. It's been really fun getting to meet a lot of you and also listen to a lot of the professionals in the business, as well as find others who share a passion for sports storytelling. Next, I'd like to thank the Sportscasters Talent Agency of America, John Chalesnik, as well as the very well-known and talented Jim Nance for having such an incredible award. Honored to be the first woman as well receiving this award, and I hope that I can be encouragement and motivation to other women in college sports to apply for the award firstly, but also work hard, because anything really is possible. Us women got to stick together. Second, I'd like to thank St. Cloud State University, all my professors and peers that pushed me to my limits and taught me the ropes and got me to where I am tonight. And lastly, thank you to my family. I have 6 brothers, all very supportive, and 2 wonderful parents, one of which is here tonight. Jackie, stand up. She's wearing the pink just like me. You really can't miss her. I may be a little biased, but she is the best. Mom, I love you. Last thing, they say Minnesota, I'm from Minnesota, if any know where St. Cloud State University is, by the way, Minnesota. And they call it Minnesota nice out there, but my last few days here in Winston-Salem, my mom and I were saying it just the other day, there's nice people out here. And to all of you I've met in the area and everyone I haven't met, this is a great area, and we'll be back for sure. So thanks again.
So we have 2 videos featuring some congratulatory messages from several people. If you, did they ask you to go that way?
I don't know where I'm supposed to go.
Okay, well, go down that way, but then watch the big screen on the scoreboard up above so that you can see the videos.
Friends, it's Jim Nance. I just want to give a quick shout out to Katie Emmer. This is the 10th year that the top college sports broadcaster has been recognized, and I'm so happy that this year's winner is Katie Emmer. I've seen your tape. We've had a chance to visit. Your reporting skills, your anchoring, your knowledge of hockey, all of these things coming together, there's no question that a big career is blossoming, and you're well on your way. And I just want to say again how much I appreciate having my name linked with yours. Congratulations on this award. I wish I could be there to celebrate with you and your family, but at the same time, I also want to give a shout out to all the state award winners and the national award winners and the Hall of Fame honorees. This is a great night, an incredible organization, and Katie, we are really proud to welcome you to this family. Congratulations on this recognition. You richly deserve it.
Hello, everybody. You got the whole crew here at the Women's College World Series. Beth Mowens, Holly Rowe,
Jessica Mendoza,
Michelle Smith. We'd like to say hello to everybody at the National Sports Media Association, and we would love to congratulate right now Katie Emmer. Woohoo, Katie! The Jim Nantz Award for Best College Sportscaster. First of all, there's no better mentor or a person to look up to than Jim Nantz. He's been a great help to a lot of us in this profession, and we all wanted to be here for you because you're going to find a lot of great people, and we love to help each other in this profession as well.
Women can be competitive with each other, and it's a competitive business, but I think that we've found a way to be supportive and competitive, but lift each other up. So that's what I would hope that you will do in your career.
Congrats, Katie.
And Katie, very proud of you. Congratulations. And remember, chicks need the long ball.
It's a fun business. You never work a day in your life.
Have a great career. Woo!
Now, early in my career, I was a producer. I wish we had had a camera on her as she was watching that video, because that was, I'm going to tweet a picture of that later, because that was amazing. It was just, yeah, that was outstanding. And my favorite part of this organization, no exaggeration, is watching people like that and promising to help people like this. And in the end, nobody's going to look out for us but us, particularly as the industry's going these days. So I hope that everybody can take that out of here tonight. My other favorite part of being in this organization are meeting my heroes. 2 years ago, before I emceed this for the first time, I sat at a table with Bob Ryan. And he had never met me, I'd never met him, and I spent the entire meal just trying to act cool because I was sitting across from him. I just read his book, Scribe, and as a lonely Red Sox fan growing up in the Carolinas in the 70s and 80s, I didn't have a lot of outlets for news pre-internet, you young people. And Bob Ryan was someone who fed me. I would go into the library looking for his work out of Boston so I could at least figure out what Jim Rice had done just with the road. So ladies and gentlemen, the chair of our national board, Mr. Bob Ryan.
Well, good evening. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I need to squelch one rumor right now, and that is Dick Weiss was not born at the Pennsylvania Palestra. He only wishes he was. Now, as a matter of fact, I can only one-up him on the subject of basketball in one area. Now, due to the vagaries of birth dates, I beat him to the Palestra. I saw my first game there in 1952. There wasn't even a formal Big Five yet. So in that sense, and in that sense only, I have college basketball bragging rights over my good friend. The truth is that when it comes to bragging rights in just about every other aspect of college basketball coverage, Dick Weiss owns the bragging rights over everyone. There is a very good reason why he is universally acknowledged as Hoops. Now, here's what it's like to be a friend of Dick Weiss. I will meet a coach. I will go off on how much I enjoyed the exchange. And almost invariably, Hoops will say, I know, we're very, very good friends. And by the way, I must acknowledge here and now that perhaps the best Hoops imitation is done by John Feinstein. So I must give credit where credit is due. Now, it really does seem on occasion that Dick Weiss actually does know every basketball coach in America, at least those east of the Rockies. In fact, it's a significant blemish on any coach's resume if he does not know Hoops. How much credibility would someone like that possibly have? Now, let me put it succinctly. There are many fine basketball writers in this country. Many are here tonight, but there is only one Hoops. And the rest of you, are the rest of you regularly consulted when coaching vacancies arise? Ask yourself. Well, the answer would be no. Well, but hoops is. That's because people know that he knows. He knows the game and he knows the people. I sure don't know how he knows so many people. Maybe he's actually triplets. By the way, his knowledge and his contacts are not limited to the male of the species. During his time, he has been a huge benefactor to the women's game. He even ran a successful camp for women. And his finger remains on the pulse of high school scene as, or so many of you quaintly call it, the preps. I come from New Jersey. We didn't use that phrase. But I digress. Put it all together. High school, college, NBA, international, women, who can touch hoops? The answer, of course, is no one. So what is it? You know, a lot of writers know the game, but they never become hoops. I think the answer, which obviously starts with technical mastery of the game and an ability to judge basketball talent, lies in his manner. Dick Weiss is truly a nice man who doesn't like hoops. And coaches somehow sense an ally. He pushes a button with them. The rest of us just don't. They see him as responsive and comforting, and they also know he can talk the game at the highest level with them. Now, only once has my faith in hoops been shaken. The year was 1997, and a few of us were sitting in an establishment in San Jose watching an NCAA tournament game. It was just another night on the road until a slender Arizona player stepped to the free throw line. Hoops cleared his throat and said simply, I don't know who that is. What? What? Come again. Oh my God. Hoops is flawed. He is only 99% prescient. It was almost there was no Santa Claus moment, quite frankly. But that was 21 years ago. It has never happened again. Ladies and gentlemen, inducted to the Hall of Fame, I give you the one and only Dick Hoops Weiss.
Thanks, everybody. I've known Bob for 41 years, and we've been good friends for a long time. It's special, and I feel that his friendship is very special. Before I get started, I would like to offer a special shout out to my wife, Joni, who is easily the best editor I ever worked with and has co-authored a couple books with me. I'd also like to say thank you to Joe and Betty Ann Cassidy, Mike Flynn from Blue Star, Bob and Elaine Ryan, Scott and Suzanne Shanker, and Pat Plunkett, who were kind enough to make the trip down here. Along those lines, I would like to thank Dave Gorin and the organization and all of the volunteers that have been here and worked so hard this weekend to make this such a success. I'd like to thank the national award winners, the Hall of Famers, people like Tom Boswell, who is here in person, and Woody Durham, who is here in spirit. It means a lot to have known both of them. They've made a huge impact on my life. I'd like to thank all the national winners, Kevin Harlan, who is here, and Leonard Hamilton, who has been a personal friend of mine for at least 25 years. It's great to see them both. I'd like to thank all the state winners. This night's about you. You bring out the best in journalism, and you should be honored for it. And the students who are the future of this sport and of the business in general. A longtime friend of mine, Leslie Visser, once told me that if you get in this business, you'll never become a millionaire, or a billionaire, but you'll lead a billionaire's life. And she's right, because I did. I worked for the Philadelphia Daily News and the New York Daily News for 41 years. I've covered 46 Final Fours, covered 35 national championships in football, and I wouldn't trade any of it for anything. I feel like I've been a witness to history, particularly in this area, which is probably why I love coming down to Carolina so often. I was there in 1974. I flew all night to get to Greensboro to see North Carolina State and UCLA and see David Thompson play Bill Walton in a game that would determine the national championship in the national semifinals. I was there when Michael Jordan made a shot in the final moments to give Dean Smith his first national championship. I was there the next year when Lorenzo Charles made a shot at the buzzer to give NC State an unlikely national championship victory over Houston's Phi Slamma Jamma. I spent the year in 1992 in Kentucky writing a book, and frankly had my heart broken when Christian Laettner made a shot in the last second to beat Kentucky in overtime in the regional finals. I've gotten a chance to see people like Tim Duncan, the late Len Bias. These are people that make huge impressions, and probably why the ACC still is the premier league in all of college basketball. I started going to watch college basketball when I was 10 years old. Somebody tonight asked me what the first game I ever saw was. And I think it was probably LaSalle versus Creighton when Paul Silas was at Creighton down at the Palestra. But I was 10 years old, and I used to go 3 times a week. They used to hold double headers at the Palestra. Used to walk up to the corner, get the bus to 69th Street, meet all my friends from St. Bernard's CYO, take the subway down to the University of Pennsylvania, and go to the Palestra, which frankly is my second home. Bob is absolutely right about that. It is a fabled building, and it has produced a lot of fabled games. I was very, very lucky when I was growing up. It was the golden era of the Big Five. We had Hall of Fame coaches like Coach Litwack and Jack Ramsey coaching a bunch of local kids, and it was Philadelphia versus the world. And all 5 teams, Villanova, St. Joe's, LaSalle, Temple, and Penn, had their moments during that period. I also was very lucky. I consider myself privileged to have worked in the golden era of print journalism from the 70s through the 80s through the 90s. When I was at both Daily Newses, the money was rolling. It was like they opened the bank vaults because we went everywhere, and every sports editor wanted to have a dateline. I talked to Dan Shaughnessy last night, and we got on the subject of the Ryder Cup, and when it was held in Boston in 1999, he said 22 credentials for the Globe. And Bob Ryan, I asked him the same question about the first time that the Patriots went to the Super Bowl. 22 credentials. This was huge. I mean, sports had a huge impact on everyone's life, and newspapers had a huge impact on everyone's life. Times have changed, but you always have the memories. Back in 2014, the paper I worked for that basically let me go anywhere I wanted for 21 years decided they were going to get rid of college coverage altogether, and I got laid off. Took me about a month. I was in shock, I have to tell you. But then I was able to reinvent myself with the help of a good friend, Mike Flynn, who is the CEO of Blue Star Media and has gone out of his way to allow me to cover international basketball involving U.S. teams all over the world. I've gotten a chance to go to Rio with them, to the Olympics. I've been to Dubai, to Prague, to Barcelona, to the Bahamas. It's been a totally new chapter in my life, but I will always remember the friendships that I made in newspapers, the priceless experience I have, and that's why this award means so much to me. When I look in the program and I see so many legends who are in the Hall of Fame and realize that I'm joining an exclusive club, I can only be humbled and say thank you to everyone involved in the selection committee, and thank you for everyone who supports good journalism in this country. Thank you.
We're talking about the legends helping the people that are breaking into the sport. One of the first major college football games I covered for ESPN the magazine was Notre Dame, Michigan, and I got to the press box entirely too early, hours early, and I was just sitting there like, what do I do now? And I hear this voice from the corner of the press box, young man, is there anything I can help you with? And I assume it's some old dude that works at the stadium, and it's Hoops. And he walks over and sits down next to me and starts talking to me forever, and I've never forgotten that. So thank you, Hoops, and this year we actually covered a couple of Hoops games sitting next to each other in the press box. It is time now for our National Sports Writer of the Year Award, and the man who's won this, I'm hoping is asleep, but I've been texting back and forth with him all evening. If you watched any of the NBA draft coverage on ESPN, then you saw Woj trying desperately not to break the we don't tip off who's about to be drafted rules, but doing a terrible job. And I'm convinced was just sitting there with this thesaurus in his lap, coming up with new ways to let us know who was about to pick what player in the NBA draft. If you've ever been around this man during particular times of the year, free agency, and certainly the draft, then you know that Woj is the man, and Woj bombs are a real thing. And when he was not working at ESPN, he drove all of my bosses completely insane. And now that he is working at ESPN, I think that he drives them insane in a completely different way, in a good way. Ladies and gentlemen, accepting that he's not here tonight, but he did send a video because I'm assuming he's just exhausted. But our National Sports Writer of the Year, Marty McGee, we can't ever pronounce his name correctly. We just go with Woj. But it's Adrian Wojnarowski.
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to thank the National Sports Media Association. I'm very sorry that I can't be with you all tonight, but I'm beyond humbled to receive the National Sports Writer of the Year Award. The list of past winners is a who's who of my childhood and adult idols. I'm not sure that I measure up to those people in talent or stature, but I do hope that I've cared and respected the craft as much as I know they have throughout their careers. My congratulations to everyone tonight, the Hall of Famers, the national winners, the state winners, but I especially want to congratulate the real stars at all the tables in the room, and that's the families. Our business is changing dramatically, and more than ever, it puts a tremendous stress and disruption onto our loved ones. I want to salute all the family members tonight. This evening is as much to honor you as it is us. I watched my daughter graduate from high school a few weeks ago, and I kept asking myself the same question as she walked across the stage. Did I miss too much? Was I home enough? Did I do right by her? There's more asked of us than ever, more demands to do more things. But I hope there's one thing that we never lose sight of, and that's our responsibility to send the elevator back down and bring more folks up with us. We owe that to the next generation of journalists. We owe them what was afforded us, and that was an opportunity. There are a lot of people in that room tonight who took time for me, Bob Ryan, Dick Weiss, many, many others, and I'll always be grateful to them. They helped me achieve my dreams. This is the only life that I've ever wanted to live. But we are in a different time now where there are a lot of people who want to diminish our profession and worse, destroy its essence to create alternate realities for personal and political gain. We need to keep standing up for the news industry, for its importance on national and I think especially local levels. And we need to make sure that young people of all backgrounds, sexes, races, feel empowered and inspired to become writers and editors, producers, on-air talent, to give us a diversity of talent and thought and work. Everyone who's a part of tonight has worked really hard, achieved a lot, and I am sure has been the beneficiary of more than one helping hand along the way. On a night like this, I think we all appreciate that even a little more. Thank you again, everyone, and hope you all have a terrific celebration tonight.
While we were watching that, I texted Woj. I noticed he kept looking down while he was talking. I assume he broke like 8 stories while he was recording that. Now it's time for another great part of the evening. And so many of you traveled so far tonight for an honor that is well deserved. It's time for our State Sports Writers of the Year Award. So if all the winners could come join us over on this side of the stage, we'll line up. And Doug Logan from Syracuse University always does a fantastic job with this portion of the program, and we're going to give over the stage to him right now.
Thank you very much, Ryan. On behalf of our state winners, heartiest congratulations to our national honorees, Kevin Harlan and Adrian Wojnarowski. And a special salute to our Hall of Fame inductees, Tom Boswell, Woody Durham, Bryant Gumbel, and Dick Weiss. Will Hall of Fame sports writer Tom Boswell please join me on stage for the presentation? This year's National Sports Media Association class of state honorees includes 44 first-time winners. Of our 105 winners, which includes ties, 7 are women, and that's the highest total in NSMA history. How about that? Here tonight, our honorees represent 29 states and the District of Columbia. We have with us 27 first-time winners. Now, let's meet our NSMA State Sports Writers of the Year, starting with Alabama. In his 4th year covering Crimson Tide football for the Alabama Media Group, he broke numerous stories, including staff news and players declaring for the NFL Draft. Winning for the first time, Matt Zenitz. From Colorado, celebrating his 25th anniversary as columnist at the Denver Post covering the Winter Olympics in South Korea, where he ate live octopus. 3rd honor, and he's grateful and he's blessed, Mark Kisla. From the District of Columbia, in his 3rd season covering the Nationals for massinsports.com and his 14th year covering the Nats for various local media outlets. First visit to Winston-Salem, Mark Zuckerman. From Georgia, 29 years with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, including the last 16 as a general sports columnist. He has written about the Falcons and the Braves, as well as the surging Georgia Bulldogs football program. 4th honor for Jeff Schultz. From Idaho, in his 5th season calling men's basketball at the University of Idaho, we'll get to that later. From Illinois, in his 1st year as sports analytics and enterprise writer for the Minneapolis Star-Tribune after 8 years of the Chicago Tribune, in part covering the Blackhawks, first win for Chris Hine. From Indiana, in his 30th year at the Tribune in South Bend, he's covered Notre Dame football 14 seasons and has recently been honored by the Associated Press sports editors and the Hoosier State Press Association. First honor for Eric Hansen. From Kansas, 22nd year as a sports editor at the Salina Journal. He's a beat writer for the Kansas Wesleyan and Salina Liberty Arena football team. Was just inducted into the Kansas Wesleyan Athletic Hall of Fame. First recognition for Bob Davidson. From Kentucky at her 19th year as a Lexington Herald leader and her 7th on the Wildcats football beat, she covered UK women's basketball for 16 years and teaches a sports writing class at the university. Second honor for Jen Smith. From Louisiana, a 30-year veteran who has served as the lead sports columnist for The Advocate in Baton Rouge since 2001. He covers the New Orleans Saints and LSU, and he's written a book about the Tigers football. First win for Scott Rabelais. From Massachusetts, at the Boston Globe 37 years, he made news with his column on David Price's verbal ambush of Dennis Eckersley and the Patriots' dramatic comeback to win Super Bowl 51. The author of 12 books. 12th honor for Dan Shaughnessy. From Minnesota, 18 years with the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, he covered the Wolves, the Wild, the Gophers football, and Vikings before becoming a columnist in 2011. Third win for Chip Scoggins. From New York, in his 33rd year at Newsday, having covered everything from high schools to St. John's basketball to Giants football to Mike Francesa's final year at The Fan. First honor, Neil Best. From North Carolina, 6 years as staff reporter at the Raleigh News-Observer. He spends most of his time as the paper's beat reporter covering the University of North Carolina Tar Heels. First win for Andrew Carter. And a tie in North Carolina, also at the Raleigh News and Observer since 2000, a sports columnist the last 10 years. He was the co-sports writer of the year from North Carolina in 2016. Second recognition, Luke DeCock. From Ohio, a 42-year veteran with the Columbus Dispatch. He's covered Ohio State football since '84 and the Indianapolis 500 since '85. He's been named National College Football Beat Writer of the Year by the Football Writers Association of America. First honor here, Tim May. From South Carolina, in her 3rd year at the Post and Courier in Charleston, she covers the Clemson Tigers' annual run for an NCAA national championship in football. First win, Grace Raynor. Also from South Carolina, in his 29th year at the Greenville News, he received a first place award from the South Carolina Press Association for co-producing the book Return to Glory, chronicling Clemson's 3rd consecutive trip to the college football playoff in 2017. First honor, Scott Kiefer. From South Dakota, in his 2nd year at the Daily Republic in Mitchell, he covered the Dakota Wesleyan men's basketball team to the NAIA Division II tournament and Bridgewater Emory's first state boys basketball championship. First win for Ryan Deal. From Tennessee, he's been working at the Tennessean for 2 years, where he covered the Nashville Predators' run to the 2017 Stanley Cup Finals. First honor in Tennessee after 1 in Michigan, Joe Rexroad. From Virginia, 34 years with the Daily Press and Newport News, he was honored for feature writing by the Associated Press sports editors and was a 2017 inductee into the United States Basketball Writers Hall of Fame. 11th honor for David Teal. And from West Virginia, in his 2nd year at Marshall University, writing for HerdZone.com and Thundering Herd Illustrated, the Herd thundered their way to a win in the New Mexico Bowl. 6th win for Chuck McGill. Ladies and gentlemen, how about a big hand for all of our state-winning sports writers?
Yeah, Tom just said he didn't drop any, so good job. This is the part you've been waiting on. We're going to take a 5-minute break. My only request is that after 5 minutes, we all congregate back here. I still am in the bad graces of people down in Salisbury because I said you get a 5-minute break, and I think everybody was gone for about 30. But so 5-minute break, and do whatever you do in 5 minutes, and we'll see you right back here and pick up the awards. This is your 2-minute warning of your 5-minute break that's turned into like a 12-minute break. 2-minute warning. If everybody could migrate back to their seats now, we'll get ready for the second half of the evening. Whenever you watch the Oscars or the Grammys or the Emmys, there's always that one section of the program where they talk about the awards that were given out in an earlier ceremony. That's where we are in these awards. Earlier in the weekend, the NSMA was proud to present the inaugural Annie Award. I mentioned my background in the NASCAR community. Miss Annie was an institution when I first came into stock car racing in the mid-1990s. I had no idea what Ann Spencer's last name was. I just knew her as the Goodies lady. Now, Goodies headache powders, for those of you who aren't from this particular part of the country, it's basically a smashed up aspirin. I once convinced Kenny Mayne on television to rub it into his skin because he did not know, as a Washington State native, that you were supposed to take it with water. And he kept rubbing it into his head and going, this is not helping my headache at all. As the only Southerner at ESPN back then, that was the only joke I had. And Kenny thought enough of it that he did do it on television. But the inaugural Annie Award, this is about sports contributing to the community and about sports and what it can do when it crosses over. And that's why the inaugural Annie Award was awarded this year to Harold Pollard. And I believe we have a look at how that award went.
Loyal, smart, caring, a ball of energy. These are all terms people use to describe Ann Llewellyn Spencer. Small in size, but a giant in connecting her community through sports. Yes, Carolina anything. As true Carolina blue as you would find anywhere. A 1950 alumna, she latched onto Tar Heel sports early. And then there was Goodies. Annie's father bought the headache powder company in 1936. And together they conspired on marketing ideas such as Annie and her kids going to every convenience store on the way to the beach and asking the store owner if they carried goodies. If the store owner said no, word would be conveyed to Annie's dad, who'd follow right behind with his goodies vendor pack all set to go. Of course, it didn't hurt to have an icon pitching the product either.
Little lady wandering around, you know, she always had 2 or 3 people with her and stuff. So everybody said, here comes the goodies lady.
A special lady, the Goodies lady. In her memory tonight and each year going forward, the National Sports Media Association will present the Ann Spencer Sports Connector Award, known forevermore as the Annie. He was known quite simply as The Rock, by his family, by his friends, by most anyone who came to know him, and it was a name well earned. He grew up in Burlington, where he was #1 in his class at Williams High School. He was #1 in his graduating class at Chapel Hill, and #1 in his UNC Med School class. Along the way, he found time for sports. A standout on the basketball and tennis courts, he was a member of the UNC freshman team in 1966-67, coached by Larry Brown, with teammates such as Eddie Fogler, Jim Delaney, and Charlie Scott. He moved to Winston-Salem 40 years ago, getting started in his medical practice in OB/GYN, delivering the first of thousands of Winston-Salem area babies. The way he treated patients, no different than the way he treated everyone else, as if each person was the most important person in the world. We say thank you to Harold Pollard with the inaugural Annie.
Another new award this year at the NSMA Awards Banquet is our Best Golf Story of the Year. And it's sponsored by our friends with the Wyndham Championship Outstanding Golf Tournament just down the road. The man who's going to come up now to introduce the winner of that award is Pete Fish. Pete, and I looked this up because I'm lazy, he's the Associate Athletic Director of Guest Experience and Venue Management here at Wake Forest University, which means that the building we're sitting in, he's in charge of. The building across the street, the football stadium, he's in charge of that. The baseball stadium, he's also in charge of that. Bob Ryan and I learned a couple years ago when we shared a dinner table, we're both minor league baseball junkies. We collect minor league ballparks. That used to be Ernie Shore Field. And that was named for a man who threw what I guess technically isn't a perfect game any longer, but he lived in this area. He did throw a perfect game. Babe Ruth started the game as a pitcher for the Red Sox, was thrown out of the game after surrendering a walk for arguing with the umpire. Ernie Shore completed a perfect game. It's no longer Ernie Shore Field, but it will always be Ernie Shore Field to me. That's the most famous reason that it was Ernie Shore Field. I had a friend in college named Billy Shore, and he tried to break into the ballpark one night and do like Crash Davis and turn the sprinklers on, and he ended up at Wake Baptist Medical Center. So that's my story versus Ernie Shore's story. But the man who is in charge of the ballpark, whatever it is called now, Pete Fish, now joins us from Wake Forest University.
Our next award recipient is no stranger to Winston-Salem. As a matter of fact, his professional career in sports media started a long fly ball from this arena at Ernie Shore Field. In 1995, just to set the stage, I was the general manager of the Class A Carolina League baseball team we have here, the Winston-Salem Warthogs at the time. Our goal was to get all of our baseball games broadcast on the radio for the first time in decades. We had no station to carry our games. We had no broadcaster. Minor problems. That's where Adam Schupak entered the picture. I received a resume from this junior at Colgate University saying that he wanted to break into broadcasting. He had absolutely no experience, and we had absolutely no budget to pay a broadcaster. Some would say that was a match made in heaven. We offered him the position. He accepted. Adam came to town and found a station to carry 30 of our games and single-handedly put together every broadcast. On nights when he wasn't on the air, he handled the public address duties at Ernie Shore Field, and we paid him a generous $25 a night, and we gave him an unlimited gift card at the local Wendy's. He ate 3 meals a day at Wendy's for an entire baseball season. And needless to say, to no one's surprise, he has not eaten at Wendy's since 1995. And the Wendy's is out of business. Adam and I were talking a little bit about that 1995 season, and he shared a couple memories with me just to put it in perspective. Bartolo Colon was pitching for the Kinston Indians that season. He's still pitching in the big leagues. Our all-star third baseman for that team was the current manager of the New York Yankees, Aaron Boone. And Adam's fondest memory from that season, the Winston-Salem Warthogs made the pages of Sports Illustrated that year for a very simple thing. We got into a brawl when we went to Durham, playing the Durham Bulls. But it was an unusual brawl because it happened on Strikeout Domestic Violence Night. So, you know, it was one of those things that we got in the news. No publicity is bad publicity. In that case, I think every player was fined $100, and it was my job to go collect it from them. So, fast forward to current day, and Adam is no longer a play-by-play broadcaster. He's an accomplished author and noted golf scribe, having served as senior writer at Golf Week. He is currently the editor of NCGA Golf Magazine and a regular contributor to the New York Times, The Athletic, and a host of other golf-centric publications, as well as the author of Dean Beeman, Golf's Driving Force. Tonight's award for the best golf story of 2017 is presented by the Wyndham Championship. The Wyndham Championship is played annually down the road in Greensboro, as it has been for the past 78 years. And it's the final regular season event before the PGA Tour's FedEx Cup playoffs begin. In fact, 18 former winners of the event are members of the World Golf Hall of Fame. Adam's Golf World piece, titled After the Earthquake, How One Man Rebuilt Golf in Haiti by Hand, is a story of sports interacting with real life. It's about a man who lived through the devastating 2010 earthquake that killed some 300,000 people in Haiti. The golf course that became home to 55,000 homeless in the country's largest canvas village of tents, and the arduous process of turning the property back into a golf course. 3 years after the earthquake, Canadian businessman Sylvain Cote set out to restore the course at his own expense. He organized a small team of caddies and former course workers to rebuild the course by hand, one hole at a time. Their only piece of machinery, a backhoe. Finally, 6 years removed from the earthquake, the only golf course in Haiti opened in May of 2016 with a tournament to which all the workers that rebuilt the course had free entry. I'm both honored and thrilled to award the Best Golf Story of 2017, presented by the Wyndham Championship, to my good friend, Adam Schupak.
Well, it's great to be back in Winston-Salem. It had been a really long time. I got to go to a ball game. It's also special because my wife is a Wake Forest graduate. We went over to the beautiful golf facility here this weekend. She was a member of the team, so it's been a great weekend here. Got to see the new ballpark and also signed some autographs at the book signing yesterday. One story that Pete and I did not reminisce about, but I want to share real quick is, I signed some autographs yesterday, but the most autographs I ever signed, we had a DARE graduation, and I drew the card to have to dress up as Wally the Warthog. That was the old team mascot. And it was pretty hot in this costume. And I remember asking Pete, can I go take it off now after I had done everything I had to do? And so he was kind enough to let me do this. And I come back in the room, and there's one kid who figured out that's Wally, and every kid in this classroom just was all over me. And I felt like I was, Mickey Mantle or something. It was a pretty memorable event. But as for this award, it means a great deal. Honored that the golf industry and golf writers are being remembered as well this weekend. A great weekend, and to be the first winner is very special. I want to thank the Wyndham Championship for sponsoring this, and also they take great care of us. I've been to many events there. They have the Irwin Smallwood Media Center, named for the former Greensboro sports editor. And every time I've been there, I've seen some great events. Last year, Henrik Stenson winning. I was also there when Patrick Reed and Jordan Spieth had a great playoff. So looking forward to getting back there for many years to come. And I think this is an award that's just going to grow in stature in the years to come, and honored to be the first to receive it. Thanks.
The Winston-Salem Warthogs, y'all. Olivia, co-worker of ours, Tom Hart, former play-by-play voice of the Winston-Salem Warthogs, which I remind him of all the time. I'm so old, I remember they were the Winston-Salem Spirit, and now they are the hyphen. I'm sorry, they are the Dash. As a writer, you know that your best friend and worst enemy is an outstanding editor. It was very early on in my transition from a television producer to a full-time sports writer that I lived to loathe my editors at ESPN the magazine, some of whom were some of the legends of the business. The man who's going to take the stage now is a legend in that business, and at one point, indirectly, was also an editor of mine as ESPN's first ombudsman. I'm speaking, of course, of George Solomon, who will take the stage now to introduce our next inductee into the NSMA Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much. It gives me great pleasure to address you at the induction of Thomas Boswell into the National Sports Media Hall of Fame, which, if both of our mentors, Shirley Povich would say, what's sports media? He's a sports writer. And in my tenure at the Washington Post as sports editor, from June 1975 until June 2003, Thomas Boswell was a great staff member. First, as a baseball writer, and in 1975, Tom was promoted from high school writer to Washington Post baseball writer, which was interesting since Washington had no baseball team for Tom to cover. But we made him a national baseball writer. And the following people want to take credit for this. The late Ben Bradley, the former owner of the Washington Post, and my predecessor, Donald Graham, and myself. Smartly, I backed off and let the two of them fight it out who promoted Boswell. But Boswell's first major assignment was the 1975 World Series between the Boston Red Sox and Cincinnati Reds. And the day of Carlton Fisk's famous home run, Boswell spilled a whole cup of coffee that morning on his Olivetti typewriter. That's before we had computers. And Tom said, I have to buy a new typewriter. And I had to call the a money lady at the Washington Post and say, look, Boswell spilled coffee on his typewriter. You know, we're going to have to spend $75 to get him a new one. And she said, without missing a beat, not approved. So, okay, we got Boswell about to cover the most famous, one of the most famous games in World Series history without a typewriter. So I said, Boswell, go and buy it. So to this day, I still owe Boswell $75. I can honestly say that Thomas Boswell, in the 28 years we worked together, took every single story down to the last moment of a deadline. And on my tombstone, it's going to say, he waited for Boz. But he looked at every single game as a lyrical chessboard. And that's what made him so great. He just wasn't covering a game, he was covering an event for the ages. And in the late 1980s, Sports Illustrated tried to hire Tom. And one of my many bosses said, well, you got to keep him. And we asked Boz, what do we have to do to keep you? Well, he mentioned some money figures, and he also said, I would like off the whole month of August and the whole month of February. And I lied and said yes. And I knew that Boswell in August in a pennant race was not going to take the whole month off, and that Boswell in the month of February, with spring training heating up, was not going to take the month of February off. And was I right? He never took them off. And what made him so special is that he was in the style of Shirley Povich, Red Smith, Fred Russell, and you very, very rarely find those kinds of sports writers today. He was, you know, he was a kid when he joined the Washington Post, and now he's a statesman. And it gives me great honor and a great privilege to announce the induction of Thomas Boswell into the National Sports Media Hall of Fame. He didn't always pat me on the back either.
Thank you, George. I never knew he played me on the vacation until tonight. that's just brutal. George would also send you to an event in Kansas City and say, well, since you're out there, there's also something going on in Seattle. And then Los Angeles isn't far from there. And on the way back, well, you're practically in Chicago, so why don't you just cover the Cubs? There are a lot of things to thank George for. But tonight, I want to thank the National Sports Media Association. Ever since Dave Gorin told me about this honor, I've been proud thinking about this night. Nothing means more in any profession than recognition from your peers. It only makes it better when the other three being honored tonight are so distinguished. It's nice especially to see Dick Weiss. I think we met 40 years ago in a dingy high school gym somewhere, and I tried to convince him that we first met covering Ralph Sampson in high school or Moses Malone in high school, and he said, no, it was Gene Banks. So anyway, we covered some that weren't so good too. I asked Dave about my time allotment for my remarks. It works out to 8 seconds for each of my 49 years at the Washington Post. Talk about a tight news hole. To show how appreciative I am, I'm going to break from character, and for once I promise I won't come in long and late. Where's George? Has he fainted yet? Tolstoy wrote the famous lead, "Happy families are all alike." So he wrote about unhappy ones instead. By that standard, my story shouldn't take long because I've had a very happy career. I grew up on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. My mom, who was an ACC grad at Duke, was a baseball fan. We rode the streetcar to Griffith Stadium, which was way on the other side of town. When I was 13, RFK Stadium opened 15 blocks from my house. A miracle. It was like a sports spaceship had landed. Suddenly, I was a bike ride and $1.25 for a bleacher seat away from watching every Senators game the entire summer. You could call it a formative experience. It's possible I still haven't overcome it. I'm lucky it wasn't a pool hall. So there I am. I live in the shadow of a gorgeous new stadium. I can go to at least follow the Skins or the Nats year-round. And what arrives in our door every morning but the Washington Post, which is led by the elegant writing of Shirley Povich. So I assumed as a child that good sports writing was just good writing, and I still do. In retrospect, I've always sort of thought of it as a benevolent conspiracy on my behalf. My dad worked at the Library of Congress in D.C., and he smuggled me into the stacks, which was totally illegal for a 10 or 12-year-old boy. And you'd see rows of bookstalls that would go 50 yards into the distance, and they'd come to a vanishing point in the distance. And my dad said to me, "Here is every book ever written about baseball. Don't go blind." That's my palestra. I graduated from Amherst College with a degree in English literature, the great refuge of the undecided. My parents had both asked me to follow any gift I had except to be an English major, so of course that was what I was. When it came to journalism, I was a walk-on. At 21, I asked for the lowest job in the sports department. That's what I got, the lowest job. Part-time copy boy on the lobster shift until 2 a.m., fetching coffee and burgers and changing typewriter ribbons. And that's just what I needed. In those years, everything that I didn't know but had to learn was on real-world display just an arm's length away from me. Back then, the sports department of the Post could be fit in a shoebox. Writers I had grown up reading were now telling me what they wanted in their coffee, or could I put Jack Nicklaus's phone call on hold until they finished talking to Muhammad Ali? Povich worked 15 feet away. I could hear his phone interviews. He was older than I am now, but I could see how much he still loved his job. Silk suit, tie loosened, sense of humor, respected but giving respect. At ease with the people he covered, but still digging for the story. Right in front of me were Dave Brady, Joan Ryan, and Bob Addy. Joan had been, she was the first Joan Ryan and one of the earliest sports columnists. Bob Addy had played football for Bear Bryant and was married to Pauline Betts, who had won Wimbledon twice. These were people who felt confident talking to the people they were interviewing. They covered the whole waterfront. All day they were on the phone with everybody who mattered in sports. I remember Don King, the promoter of fights who had the electrified hair, and Dave Brady wasn't buying his pitch. Dave said, if you held that fight in my backyard, I'd close the blinds. Those days were rich in mentors, but they ended fast. As George said, Don Graham became the sports editor for a year, and he broke me out. When he arrived, I'd covered the same high school football game 6 years in a row, a meteoric rise. And I was still covering bicycle races at 5 a.m. and Maryland professors who claimed that they could throw a boomerang around the Washington Monument until I got there and they said, you don't think anybody can throw a boomerang around the Washington Monument, do you? I just wanted you to come cover my session. Soon I was covering the 1975 World Series. Carlton Fisk, stay fair, stay fair. I've covered every World Series game since then. The next 28 years under George were a blur. He has that effect. By the 80s, I was his Orioles writer, national baseball writer, national boxing writer, national golf writer, national tennis writer, Georgetown Hoyas basketball writer, Enterprise feature writer, an occasional columnist, and I contributed a 5,000-word piece each month for Inside Sports, which was a post-startup magazine. And every once in a while, I'd do some Redskins stories to keep busy. During that time, I'm told that I married and had a son who's now 31. I can't confirm it. However, I am sure I covered Earl Weaver for 9 years. He was my baseball graduate school. Usually we got along. But once in the World Series, Earl boycotted me. He not only refused to talk to me, he refused to talk if I was there. The next spring training, he said, my wife says I'm going to go to hell if I don't talk to you. And I said, thanks, Earl, but I don't have any questions right now. Oh, for just like 2 more moments like that in a lifetime. Asking questions matters, but what matters more to me anyway is watching and listening, year after year, even decade after decade. You're gathering string, detail, anecdote, the kind of granular grasp of a subject that only total saturation usually brings with it, until all those strings weave themselves together into an insight. An insight into what? You never know until you see it. Then you say that right there has to be incorporated in the portrait. For example, when my son Russ was 8 years old, I took him and a friend of his named Drew to an Orioles game. We were getting out of the car, and like a klutz, I closed the door on Drew's thumb. He bawled. I begged. Drew, what can I do from you? I'll do anything. He stopped crying like that. Can you get me Cal Ripken's autograph? We're not supposed to do that, but I was stuck. A few days later, I asked Cal to sign a ball for Drew. He said, I'll leave it in my locker between games of the doubleheader. And I said, what's going on here? I've known Cal for years. He's blowing me off. All he had to do was sign one ball out of the balls lying right there behind him. But I came back between games anyway. There was a ball in Ripken's locker covered in writing. It said, to Drew, I hope you feel better soon. Like my dad always says, it'll stop hurting before you're married twice. Cal Ripken. Drew is now married, and that ball is on the centerpiece of his mantle in his living room. Over a lifetime, it's the energizing, shocking surprise of sports in individuals, like Cal breaking Lou Gehrig's record by over 500 games, and in events you never thought you'd see. That's what constantly amazes you, keeps you energized, and why we still have people who want to get into this business. If you told me just 15 years ago that my future included covering both the cursed Red Sox and the cursed Cubs winning the World Series, and baseball returning to my hometown, and an all-star game in a modern park in 2 weeks, and that the choking Washington Capitals would win the Stanley Cup, but with the last game of the ice hockey season played in the middle of the Nevada desert, I'd have said, wow, I get to keep working till I'm 1,000? All my stories aren't such cheerful ones, just tonight. Athletes cross the same range of virtue and vice of human experience as the rest of us, the whole range. So over the years, the way you view athletes, the way you see all of sports, will come across in your stories or your columns. And it will unintentionally reveal exactly how you feel about everything. The reader knows that intuitively and knows it immediately. If you think you're judging others when you write, you're wrong. You're uncovering yourself. When I walked into the Post, I had no idea of being a sports writer for life. It was almost a lark. But within months, I was hooked. I was home. Most days, it's been like eating fudge. Of course, not every day has been sweet. When I was 25, the managing editor of the Washington Post, Ben Bradley, didn't even know I worked at the Post. One day, news hit the wires that we would be sued for $8 million for my scoop in that morning's paper. It was about a well-known company involved in an Olympic ticket scam with kickbacks. I walked into Ben's office. I'd never met him. "Is the story right?" he introduced himself. "Yes," I elaborated. "You have 1 week to write a stronger story," Ben said. "Thank you," I said. Obviously I did, because I'm still here tonight. What I said to Ben then, I want to say again tonight to everybody here. To all of you who are part of this admirable, demanding, challenged institution of journalism, thank you for everything, for the satisfaction of being part of this enterprise for the last 49 years. Tonight, you've appreciated my work, but I'm the one who's grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. That was outstanding. And the next time I have an editor scream at me because I'm a day late and 700 words too long, I will tell him that Tom Boswell told me that was okay the night he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. It is now time to bring up our friend Doug Logan, and it is time for all of you who are state sportscasting winners to assemble to my left-hand side here, because it is time for you to accept your awards for this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, again, Doug Logan, by the way, also a state winner in this category.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you. Thank you so much. Please keep your seats. Kevin Harlan is on his way up on stage. You know, a lot of folks enjoy receiving a round of applause this evening, but I'd like to offer one up for our outstanding awards banquet MC. How about a round of applause for Ryan McGee? All right, guys. You look more athletic than the writers. Well, maybe not. Some of them. Everybody in line? Let's get going. Introducing our NSMA State Sportscasters of the Year. First, from the District of Columbia, 23 years as the television play-by-play voice of the Stanley Cup champion Washington Capitals. A 12-time Capital Region Emmy Award winner for excellence in play-by-play. Second win for Joe Beninati. From Florida, heading into his 42nd year broadcasting basketball, he is the lone original member of the Miami Heat broadcast team, having called nearly 2,200 regular season games and 3 championships. He's won 17 regional Emmy Awards. First honor for Eric Reed. From Georgia, 14-year radio voice of the Atlanta Falcons. He also calls ACC football and basketball for Fox Sports South and Raycom Sports. He co-hosts the morning show on Sirius XM ACC channel. 11th recognition, Wes Durham. From Idaho, in his 5th season calling men's basketball at the University of Idaho on the Vandals radio network, he also calls minor league baseball for the Tri-City Dust Devils. First win, Chris King. From Indiana, the 45-year voice of the Indiana Hoosiers in football and basketball. He also anchors the preseason telecast for the Indianapolis Colts the last 23 years. A 2 Hall of Famer, 25th honor here for Don Fisher. From Iowa, in his 22nd year hosting Iowa's most popular live sports show, Sound Off. He also anchors nightly sportscasts on both NBC and Fox affiliates in Des Moines. 3rd honor, Keith Murphy. From Kentucky, 28 years at WDRB-TV in Louisville. He's covered some great basketball, interviewed many of the big names in the world of sports. First win for Tom Lane. From Michigan, he completed his 40th year of sports writing and broadcasting as afternoon host of The Drive with Jack on radio and Sunday night producer moderator of Press Pass on Fox 47. He has sent 72 intern protege into sports media. First sportscasting honor after 3 as a writer, Jack Ebling. From Minnesota, 10 seasons with the Minnesota Lynx radio network and 3rd handling the play-by-play, calling the Lynx run to their 4th WNBA championship in the last 7 years. He also hosts shows for the Timberwolves. First win, John Folke. From Mississippi, serving as a communication director at Jackson State University, he also holds the position of sports director and hosts JSU TV's morning show. First honor for Rob J. From Montana, 4 seasons as the enthusiastic voice of the Montana State Bobcats as the Cats compete for the Big Sky Conference crown. First trip to Winston-Salem, Jay Sanderson. From Nevada, in her 5th year as KSNV-TV, she's covered the Oakland Raiders' move to relocate to Las Vegas, the inaugural NHL season for the Golden Knights, and 2 mega fights. She's an amateur boxer herself. First win, Amber Dixon. From New York, lead sports anchor in his 21st year at WNBC TV. He covered the Yankees' run to the ALCS, the NFL playoffs, the NBA draft, the Belmont Stakes, the U.S. Open Tennis Championships. He also received the Jessica Savage Award of Distinction for Excellence in Journalism from his alma mater, Ithaca College. 9th honor after 2 in New Jersey, Bruce Beck. From North Carolina, the 22-year radio voice of the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. He called the Deacons' win over Texas A&M in the Belk Bowl and Wake's return to the NCAA basketball tournament. 4th honor for Stan Cotton. From North Dakota, in his 2nd year at KFGO and KNFL Radio in Fargo, he broadcasts football and hoops for North Dakota State College of Science. He made ESPN SportsCenter's top 10 by calling the Fargo-Moorhead Redhawks baseball teams turning 2 triple plays in a single game. First win for Brad Anderson. From Ohio, the 18-year radio play-by-play voice of the University of Cincinnati Bearcats and 7-year voice of the Bengals. He also hosts Cincinnati Reds pre- and post-game shows on Fox Sports Ohio. 2nd honor for Dan Horde. From Rhode Island, sports director in his 5th year at WLNE-TV, ABC6 in Providence, he witnessed the New England Patriots stage the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history. He also covers the University of Rhode Island Rams. First win for Nick Coit. From South Carolina, in his 12th year at WCIV-TV in Charleston, he covered the Clemson Tigers football national championship and trip to the White House, South Carolina basketball's run to the Final Four, and the Stingrays' battle to the Kelly Cup Finals. First recognition, Scott Eisberg. From South Dakota, 36 years at Brookings Radio, covering area high schools in South Dakota state sports, he received the Distinguished Service Award from the State High School Activities Association and the Hall of Shrine Award from the state's basketball coaches. Second win, Dallas Cole. From Tennessee, the 14-year TV voice of the Memphis Grizzlies and 25th season of NBA play-by-play, including stints with the Pistons and the Trailblazers. He's also worked the Olympics for NBC and the NBA playoffs for Turner Sports. First honor for Pete Pranica. From Texas, he's entering his 40th season broadcasting games on the Dallas Cowboys radio network. He's a regular 12th NSMA honor for Brad Sham. From Utah, 20-year broadcast veteran who has spent the last 10 as part of the Utah Jazz television team. He's hosted award-winning Jazz game night shows while remaining a community activist and advocate for addiction recovery awareness. First win for Alema Harrington. From Virginia, this versatile broadcaster hosts Mornings with McElroy on Fox Sports in Richmond, while also covering Virginia Tech and VCU. He writes for the Times-Dispatch, and his radio promotion, Dad's Day, Dollars Against Diabetes, raised more than $30,000. Second win for Wes McElroy. And from West Virginia, 22-year radio voice of the Marshall Thundering Herd. He calls last year's games, including a run to the Conference USA Basketball Tournament Championship game, a win over Colorado State in the New Mexico Bowl, and a 92-yard punt against Old Dominion. 12th recognition for Steve Cotton. Ladies and gentlemen, how about one more big round of applause for all of our state sportscasters and all of tonight's honorees. Thank you.
Congratulations to all. One of my favorite things about traveling the country, particularly in the fall, to cover college football, is dashing back to the airport and dialing in on the AM dial and listening to the fine work of a lot of the people that we just saw walk across the stage. It's outstanding. And by the way, I got some questions for some of those guys about this. That's my rundown for the deal, and I asked if they could have folded that up, and they said no, so we're just going to call that that's my homage to Lane Kiffin. I feel like I should have laminated that, calling for like a fake 23 blast with a backside George reverse off the play chart. Talking about the voices that you hear when you drive through the countryside, as a North Carolinian, the voice of Woody Durham was part of the soundtrack of my life. And that's why it is such a tremendous honor to be on this stage tonight for our next NSMA Hall of Fame inductee. And to start that process, I want to introduce a man that there's a chance that if you've listened to a college sports broadcast, it was something that he founded and worked on. If you've been to a Hall of Fame, Sports Hall of Fame, there's a chance this man is on that board. And more importantly, to most of the people in this room, he is also a Wake Forest Demon Deacon. Here to induct Woody Durham into our Hall of Fame is Ben Sutton.
Thank you, everybody, and welcome to Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We're delighted to have you here. It's my distinct privilege and great honor to induct the late and incredibly great Woody Lombardi Durham into the National Sports Media Association Hall of Fame. Years ago, I learned that Woody and I were both born right down the road in Mebane, North Carolina. He grew up in Albemarle, North Carolina, and shared a lifelong friendship with his schoolmate there, Bob Harris, the longtime voice of the Duke Blue Devils. Imagine that. Woody treated calling a game like a craft, and he has inspired generations of on-air talent to not only enter the business, but to understand the responsibility and stewardship that goes along with it. He actually had one of his first jobs on the Wake Forest Demon Deacon Network, a fact I love to recall with him almost every time I saw him. and was sports director at several different radio and television stations, including many years at WFMY right here in the Piedmont Triad. He called ACC football and basketball games on the original ACC television network, and for 40 years, his smooth delivery, his incredible voice, his amazing personal approach to calling college football and basketball games made its way into millions of homes in the Tar Heel State as the voice of the University of North Carolina. Above all, Woody Durham was my friend. When I was just a youngster in this business, he encouraged me and gave me wise counsel. When I was thinking of starting my own company in 1992, ISP Sports, in a college sports media space in which all of my competitors had 20 or 25-year head starts, he was my biggest cheerleader. Later, when I'd hired both of his sons, Wes as the play-by-play voice of Georgia Tech, and Taylor as a national network studio host, and traveling around the country searching for radio stations on our 2,000-station radio network, he was a proud but incredibly humble and grateful father, and he always let me know it. And when I was inducted into the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame last year, he came to my induction in a Hall of Fame which he'd been an occupant for many, many years. He shook my hand at first, and then he grabbed me and just hugged me tight. It literally brought me to tears, the only moment of the night that did. His famous words, "Go where you go and do what you do," have rung true for many of us in this room and beyond. I miss Woody. I miss his infectious laugh, but I know he's in heaven now with Keith Jackson and Dick Enberg, and that they're playing golf, telling stories, none of them able to get a word in edgewise, and laughing out loud. Woody Durham becomes only the second college play-by-play to be inducted into this esteemed Hall of Fame. I am so honored, so humbled that his family asked me to be a small part of this special night. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Woody's oldest boy, the voice of the Atlanta Falcons and a recipient of one of those awards, Mr. Wes Durham.
Ben, thank you so much. Wow, nice room. We appreciate your kind words. Appreciate you being a part of the Durham celebration tonight. We felt as a family that Ben knew my dad had not only love for this business, but the people in the business, and we appreciate you being part of this very special night. Congratulations to all the winners and all the inductees. It's been awesome. I will tell you briefly, not only the fellow Hall of Famers and national winners tonight, but our family is especially happy for Andrew Carter of the News and Observer, who about 15 months ago, wrote the Takeout 4-piece article on my dad's battle with aphasia. We feel in part because of his unbelievable work that night and on that project that lasted almost a calendar year, Andrew's being honored tonight because he helped us raise now nearly $100,000 for aphasia research in the state of North Carolina. I'll tell you, it's great to be in Winston-Salem, my mom's hometown, proud 19 graduate of Gray High School, and about 3 miles from here, she and a young football lineman from Albemarle, North Carolina met when they were 16 years old at debate camp, and she put up with him. So Sonia Jean Heggie, we love you, glad to have you here tonight. And this is also the city where many of you have come in the state of North Carolina to learn about the hashtag Hey Woody. This is where Hey Woody was born. My mom and dad and younger brother Taylor were leaving a restaurant one night. Carolina was playing in the national NCAA tournament. They were playing a first and second round game here. Big Carolina fan stopped, started the conversation by yelling, "Hey Woody." He then spent 16 minutes telling Dad how wonderful he was and how much he loved Carolina, and he went to pharmacy school and his wife went to pharmacy school, and he never told my dad his name. My dad told Taylor, "That sure was a nice guy. I wish he'd have told us his damn name." Tyler said, yeah, but he started out by yelling a block away, "Hey, Woody." So if you ever see the hashtag Hey Woody on social media, it was born here in Winston-Salem. We have a lot of ironies in our lives here in the last 18 months. And tonight, my dad goes into the NSMA Hall of Fame. Although he would never tell you his all-time favorite broadcast, I feel confident that in 1997, when Dean Smith broke Adolph Rupp's record in this building, my dad would tell you it was one of his favorites. So the irony that this moment comes in this building is not lost on our family. I need to quickly remind you, and those of you that have been here before, I will not be attempting to break Dick Vitale's NSMA record in the acceptance speech category. For those of you that weren't with us, Dick went 49 minutes, 37 seconds. And the reason I'm not is because my dad would be completely pissed at me. Tonight, we're thankful to the NSMA Hall of Fame Committee and selected voters for the honor. We're especially glad that my dad was able to be notified of this before he passed away in early March. Life for our family in these last 2 years has been very different, especially for my mom and my brother, who were on the front line of my dad's battle day to day with aphasia. But we had some moments that were incredibly ironic as well. One of those was the way he reacted in January when, during a timeout of the Carolina-Clemson game in Chapel Hill, the public address announcer at the Smith Center told the crowd of the honor, which had been announced earlier that day by Dave Gorin in the NSMA, and the video board at the Smith Center found my dad in his seat in the upper corner of the Smith Center above the tunnel. And he was able to stand up and respond to the crowd. And his oldest son was able to watch it live because I was there doing the game on television. That was complete irony. Tonight, it's important to know how touched we've been as a family from the prayers, support, and really just the simple kindness from so many of you since early March. Personal friends, professional friends, Carolina fans, ACC fans, even ABCers. And if you're not sure what ABCers are, that's anybody but Carolina. And others who were impacted one way or another by my dad on the radio or in another fashion during what we regard as his remarkable career. It's meant a great deal to us. It's helped us grasp the bigger impact beyond just broadcasting. I said a moment ago he loved the business, but he also loved the people in it. And that's very true. But you had to be willing to put the effort into being in this business from his standpoint. He was always looking for ways to get better and improve each season because he felt if coaches and players were doing the same thing, then it was at least what the announcer should try to do. His colleagues on the Tar Heel Sports Network who are here tonight, Ben Alexander, Jones Angel, Dave Nathan, Steve Gowan, Tom Bowman with Learfield, great friends for years, they know. Folks who are here from the University of North Carolina Athletics, they know. They can attest to these characteristics. Whether you'd been on the air for 20 years or 20 minutes, he believed preparation and hard work would pay off, just like it would for the coaches and players when the games got played. The 13 times he was selected North Carolina Sportscaster of the Year, he and my mom thoroughly enjoyed being part of this event. Much like today, it was amazing. I was kind of in a time machine. Friendships in the business are built. But so were friends who supported this organization, which still means a lot to those of us working in this industry today. Those industry friendships were so important to him. And I think it's important the organization continues to help build more of those in the years ahead of, as Tom Boswell and Dick Weiss have talked about tonight, this ever-evolving industry we're now in. I know that our family feels very blessed to have many of our business friends here tonight. Some are new, and some we've known for longer than we care to admit. Stan Cotton, 34 years. Tonight's honor for my dad also does something that is very unexpected to us. It completes the career hat trick. Ben already told you he becomes just the second college announcer to be inducted in the NSMA Hall of Fame. But he becomes the first to receive this honor. He's also been presented the Chris Schenkel Award from the National Football Foundation and the Gowdy Award from the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. Thank you. I also hope that by joining Larry Munson to be enshrined in this Hall of Fame, we have a chance as an organization to add more in the years to come and to remember the contributions of these legendary college voices to our industry. Again, congratulations to you all. Thank you all again. God bless. I'm going to ask Wes to stay here with us. Also would like for Tom Bowman, Vice President of Learfield Sports. We have another Durham in the building. Taylor, if you come up and join us. And Steve Kirshner, also from the University of North Carolina. They're joining us now to present an award that we hope will further the cause of what Wes just talked about. We're going to reveal the winner of the Woody Durham Voice of College Sports Award.
Good evening. I told Steve Gowan, our Executive Vice President, we'd make it by 10 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock on the nose, so I've been editing at the table. So this is for you, Steve. You know, when you think of the University of North Carolina, you think about many things. You think about Carolina Blue. You think about Dean Smith and Michael Jordan. You think about Carolina and Duke. And of course, you think about the late, great Woody Durham. You know, Woody meant so much to UNC and its fans, and he was the true voice of the program. He brought so many great moments to those that couldn't be there to see them themselves, and those listening on the radio always had a familiar voice to help lead the way. He began his career in an era when every game was not on television or a tiny screen or in your hand. And voices like his help paint the picture for those glued to their radios. Woody didn't take that lightly. His dedication to the broadcast showed every time he cracked the mic. Former Tar Heel Phil Ford said it best, quote, "For those of us that know Woody, we know he put in as much preparation, which is not what I did this evening, for each game as much as the players and the coaches did themselves." It is in that spirit that a new NSMA award was created and will be sponsored by Learfield and the University of North Carolina Athletic Department. I'm honored and humbled to announce the creation of the Woody Durham Voice of College Sports Award. It'll be presented annually to a voice from the world of college sports who is as symbolic to their fans as Woody Durham is to Tar Heel fans everywhere. The recipient each year will be chosen by a committee who will evaluate based on some criteria that will make sense to you, including preparation, recognizability with their school, tenure, efforts in the community, mentorship with the young broadcasters out there, and of course, character. With that in mind, the decision on the inaugural winner was pretty simple. This broadcaster received his 25th state award this evening. And I'm not going to hear about this for a long time. He just finished his 45th season with Indiana, and he is synonymous with the word Hoosiers. He's called some of the greatest moments in IU history and even endured the one and only Bob Knight. I can think of no one more deserving than the man that we call Fish. The 2018 Woody Durham Voice of College Sports Award is awarded to Don Fisher.
I can't tell you how I'm feeling right now. This is unbelievable. Because Woody Durham and I were friends for a long time. Didn't get to see each other very much over the years. but I respected him probably as much as I've respected any broadcaster in our profession through the years that I've been a part of it, which has been a long time. And I can tell you that to receive an honor like this with Woody's name on it might be the highlight of my career. Thank you so very much.
What a great moment. And I think about it, I think it was we all grew up listening to the radio. I think about as I've traveled the country and you go out on the West Coast and you listen to minor league baseball play-by-play announcers and they all sounded like Vin Scully. And you went into the Carolinas and they all sounded like Woody Durham. And I'll be in Tennessee on Wednesday night for the memorial service for John Ward, who passed away just over the last week. And when I went to school in Tennessee, you turn on the high school radio on Friday night, and they all sounded like John Ward. So I'm glad to see these college legends being recognized, and not just because of my close relationship with the Durham family. One of my favorite parts of this experience every year is meeting the people and the voices behind the greatest moments and the greatest calls in sports. The people who have graced this stage, whether it's here or where it's in Salisbury, I think about Howard Cosell, Down Goes Frazier. I think about Al Michaels, Do You Believe in Miracles? And tonight you all get to witness our winner of the National Sportscaster of the Year, who I believe had one of the greatest calls of all time, which is, of course, was the streaker on Monday Night Football on radio just a couple years ago. Please look that up on YouTube, just not for the next few minutes while he comes up to accept this award. It is my honor to present the National Sportscaster of the Year Award to Kevin Harlan.
Thank you. My career in broadcasting started when I was 14 years old at an all-boys Catholic school in Green Bay, Wisconsin. End of my freshman year, our student-run 10-watt radio station was holding tryouts for the next year's play-by-play job. And I tried out. Now, we were taught by nuns and priests and lay people, and they were going to be the judges after all these auditions. There were about 25 guys trying out. And so I grabbed that cassette microphone, and they were showing a film up on the blackboard. And they said, give us a couple minutes, and then you can go. So I'm watching what's going on up there, and our team was the Premontre Cadets, and we're on defense. There's a fumble. It looks like we've recovered, and our guys begin to celebrate on the field. So as they're celebrating, and I'm talking in this cassette microphone, I say, instead of saying, they're jumping up and down for jubilation, they were, as I said, jumping up and down in ovulation. Now, I can tell you, as a 14-year-old, I did not know what that meant. And I'm not sure in my 50s if I still know what that means, but my career was off and running. I am honored beyond words to be here. You accept awards like this, not because of really what you've done, but the people along the way that have helped pave the way for what you've become on this wonderful journey. My dad was in Major League Baseball with the St. Louis Cardinals. He was the PR director. So when I was 6 and 7 years old and on up, I would go to spring training at Al Lang Field in St. Petersburg, Florida. I got to go with him to all the Cardinal games at Busch Stadium on Sundays after church. We would have breakfast up there, and here came Jack Buck, and here came Vin Scully, and all Bob Prince, the voice of the Pittsburgh Pirates, would come into that broadcast area and have breakfast and sit down and say hello to my dad, and I got to see these giants in the broadcasting business. I sat in the back of the booth of Harry Carey and Jack Buck when I was 8, 9, 10 years old in St. Louis, and then my dad went to the Green Bay Packers, and he was with the Green Bay Packers for over 35 years. And I got to work in the press box when I was 11, 12, 13 years old and got to see the greats in our business. So I've been incredibly lucky to be exposed to those kinds of people over the years. And my dad was my first mentor. He was the sports editor of the student newspaper at Marquette University in Milwaukee. So he was a great mentor indeed. I went to the University of Kansas, where Tom Hedrick, the first voice on radio of Super Bowl I on CBS radio, was the voice of the Kansas Jayhawks, and he took me under his wing, and I got a chance to learn from one of the best, and he guided me through those 4 years at KU. My first job at the age of 22 was in the NBA as the play-by-play voice, radio and TV, of the Kansas City Kings. And when they moved to Sacramento, I became the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs at 24. So my life has been blessed. I have been more lucky than talented by a far margin. I've had these people that have meant so much to me. A couple are here tonight that I want to introduce. Along the way, I have been lucky enough to be a network announcer for Fox and CBS and TNT. And a guy that I have been in business with, my agent here from New York, who has engineered these deals, Michael Glantz, is here from ICM, and Brian Jacobs, who has been so instrumental, both of them, in what they've done. But Michael and I have been together for over 25 years, and he has been absolutely wonderful to me. The only thing I ever wanted to do in this business was radio network play-by-play. When I grew up and listened on staticky radios, I heard the voice of Lindsey Nelson and Pat Sheridan, and these great voices, Jim Simpson, and these people on the Mutual Broadcasting System and NBC Radio, later Jack Buck and Hank Stram on CBS Radio. And I thought, how in the world would I ever be lucky enough to get a job doing network national radio play-by-play? That was my dream. And Howard Deneroff, who is here from Westwood One, fulfilled my dream by hiring me to be Monday Night Football voice. I've done 8 Super Bowls and 5 Final Fours, going into my 10th year in Monday Night Football. And I tell Howard every time I put on that headset how lucky I am to be working for him and doing something that I've always dreamt of. Like I said, this is a team award, and the best team I'm with is right down here. I want to introduce my family. They have come over from all over the country. Abigail is here. She lives in New York and loves her life, and she went to nearby Furman and is about the happiest girl I know, with always a perpetual smile on her face. She's our oldest girl. Our middle daughter is Haley, who was married 2 years ago, and she is pregnant with her first child, which means that in November I'll become a grandpa, and I'll be married to a grandma, which I'm very excited about. And she's going to be a wonderful mother. Olivia is our baby girl, and I told her one thing: do not, for God's sakes, do not get into broadcasting, and that's exactly what she did. She went to the Grady School at the University of Georgia, and she was hired by Fox Sports while she was a senior, doing sideline for SEC games, going to college on the weekdays, and then finishing up her senior year at Georgia. And she was hired by ESPN at 22, where she still works to this day. But the biggest moment is 2 weeks away in her life, when she will be married. So we've got all kinds of things going on in our family. And our son, who is our baby, is Robert, and he is a senior at the University of Denver. He'll be a senior, rising senior this fall. Quick story: took him as a little guy when he was about 10 years old to a game I was doing in Cleveland with the Patriots and the Cleveland Browns. And in those meetings with the New England Patriots, he was going to meet Tom Brady. And I said, Rob, when you go up to Tom Brady, say, hi, Mr. Brady, I'm Robert Harlan, and I've got 3 older sisters like you do. And so sure enough, Brady walks in, and his kindness is always on display, and he looks everybody in their eye, and he finally gets over to Robert in the corner. Robert stands up and goes, hi, Mr. Brady, I'm Robert Harlan, and I've got 3 sisters, older sisters like you do. And Brady looks at him and says, Robert, I've got 3 older sisters like you say, and now they all work for me. So to be the baby raised by these girls has been some accomplishment, but there's not a prouder father in the world than I am of my son. And then if you've ever heard the expression, behind every successful man, there is a surprised woman, no one is more surprised than my wife tonight. I guarantee you, for 31 years we've been together. She agreed to be induced between my games that I was broadcasting, induced labor so that we could have all 4 of our kids and I would not miss a birth. I'd do a game, I'd fly home, I'd pick her up, we'd go to the hospital, we'd have the baby, I went out and got a bag of burgers, we had a milkshake, we brought the baby home, I went back on the road again, and we started all over again, and we've got these 4 great kids right here. But if ever an angel walked the earth, it is my wife, who has been with me, and the most wonderful support that I could possibly ask for. And I dedicate this award to her tonight because of what she's meant to our family and how she's kept it together. A lot of people have mentioned this tonight. Adrian mentioned it. Our families are the backbone of why we're able to do what we're doing and enjoying it so much. As you can see, I've been blessed beyond measure. I love my family and I love my job. Dave Gorin, thank you so much for having us. We've enjoyed this weekend. It's been a pleasure meeting you. Winston-Salem, thank you for being such a gracious host and such a wonderful place to visit. I hope we have many more trips back here. You know, I've got unmeasured humility tonight. I'm in the presence of greatness. Thomas Boswell, who I've read for my whole life, along with Hoops and Bob Ryan. And to be among these greats, along with the guys that I've worked with in this business, Eric Reed, and the first call I got was from Brad Sham, who is the 12-time winner in Texas. That's more than Frank Gleber and Vern Lundquist. And then Wes and Pete Pranik and all these wonderful guys that I've been a part of watching their careers grow side by side through the years. It's a very special place in your heart when your peers give you this kind of recognition. And my heart is full tonight with gratitude. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. I'd like to invite our Executive Director, Dave Gorin, back up on stage. This is our ceremonial part of the ceremonies. I'm tired, it's late. Where we bring up our Hall of Famers and the national winners. So Kevin, you got to come back up. And this is our presentation of the ceremonial baseball bats. The year that Dick Vitale went almost an hour with his speech, we were afraid everyone would use their baseball bats. They did not, thankfully. These are custom-made bats with their names on them. And then we will have a bunkhouse stampede. They do wrestling in this building. Starcade. Yeah, Starcade. That's right. The Crockett Memorial Cup. Bobo Brazil. That's right. Ric Flair will come running down the stairs at any moment. Tell us what you need. Congratulations to all of our honorees tonight. If you've had a great time, come back, even if you haven't won an award, and take a moment to go to the website and donate if you can. It's been a trying couple of years for the organization. Dave has done a fantastic job, and our board has done a fantastic job of getting things back on track, so please, if you get a chance, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, make a little donation. That'd be fantastic.
And how about one more thank you to Ryan McGee, who did a tremendous job tonight. For those of you who, again, if you bid on silent auction items, the winning bids are circled. For those of you who are flying home early tomorrow or maybe late tomorrow, we have a list at the Marriott behind the valet desk of when your shuttles will be leaving for the airport. Once again, thank you all for being here. What a great night. We'll see you next year. Thank you. And if you'd like us to box up your award, we have the boxes here. Bring them up. We'll box them up for you.